and we can continue the lesson Poets and Pancakes. So Poets and Pancakes, page number 58, you can take that. We will have a glance and we can continue. The makeup room had the look of a hair cutting salon with lights at all angles, around half a dozen large mirrors. They were all incandescent lights, so you can imagine the fiery mystery of those subjected to makeup, right? The makeup department was first headed by a Bengali and who became too big for a studio and left. And he was succeeded by Maharashtrian, who was assisted by Darwa Kannadiga and Andhra, Madras Christian, and Anglo-Burmese, and the usual local Tamils. So all this shows that there was a great deal of national integration long before AR, All India Radio, and Doordarshan began broadcasting programs on national integration. You know what is the meaning national integration, right? And of course, even. And this gang of nationally integrated makeup men would turn any decent looking person into a hideous crimson hued monster, a hued monster with that means the different attitude. That means the image disguised like so a cute monster with the help of truckloads of pancake and the number of other locally made potions and lotions. And those were the days of mainly indoor shooting, and only 5% of the film was shot outdoors. So I suppose the sets and the studio lights needed the girls and boys to be made to look ugly in order to look presentable in the movie. As said hierarchy, I already told you that it means maybe an order, right? So a strict order was maintained in the makeup department. The chief makeup man made the chief actors and actress ugly. And the senior assistant, the second hero and heroine. The junior assistant, the main comedian, and so forth. So the players who played the crowd bear the responsibility of the office boy. You know what is the meaning of office boy? Even the makeup department of Gemini Studio had an office boy. So on the days when there was crowd shooting, you could see him mixing. That means see him, office boy, mixing his paint in a giant vessel and and slapping it on the crowd players. Means in a crowd mob, right? The idea was to close every pore, so small holes on our face. The idea was to close every pore on the surface of the face in the process of applying makeup. He wasn't exactly a boy. He was in his early 40s. So having entered the studios years ago in the hope of becoming a star actor or a top screenwriter, director, or lyrics player, writer, he was a bit of poet. So all those expectations, you can also remember that. Likewise, wherever you go and see that any employees, you just ask them what he wanted to become. But he wanted to become in the sense they will explain. I wanted to become an MBBS, a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer. But anyhow, unfortunately, I missed that opportunity. Now have become like, and they are saying their real profession where they are playing. Likewise, he wanted to. That's why yesterday I brought an example, Satyan in Tamil industry, the cinema industry. You can also see the Satyan and relation of course, Satyaraj. And he wanted to become an actor, but now he just became a comedian, right? And of course, sometimes some genuine characters he's coming and acting and going with that. You can take everything. I think in the Ratsasi movie also, he acted as a PET teacher, right? PE, physical education teacher. And he showed everything. So here he wasn't exactly a boy, he was in his early 40s. Having entered the studios, he has taken the hope of becoming a star actor or a top screenwriter. You can also see an example Kamal Hassan. Kamal Hassan, he was a child artist once, and of course, he joined as a dance master. And of course, Prabhudeva, you can take that. Prabhudeva was also, well, he joined as a dance master, dance troupe, and even Raghava Lawrence. They joined in a different, then they became actor. And of course, you can take some even poet also. I think you can see and Snehan and Bhavijay, they became sometimes, they also became actors, some different actors. So he was in his early 40s, having entered the studios years ago in the hope of becoming a star actor or a top screenwriter, director, or lyrics writer. He was a bit of poet. He was also a bit of poet. That means he had that experience, and he was capable of writing poetry and songs, right? In the movie for a movie. In those days, I worked. I underline the word and write. We can assume. So I worked means here in those days I worked in a cubicle. Underline that. You know what is the meaning? It's like we can take. It's like a prison, jail. So cubicle, small cabin, and of course, in those days I worked in a cubicle, two whole sides of which were French windows. I didn't know that at the time they were called the French windows. That means it is something open, directly connected with the main and of course the LAN. So seeing me sitting at my desk, that means everybody comes to know, everybody comes to see. It is like, reception desk. So seeing sitting at my desk, tearing up newspapers, everybody comes to know that when I was doing that. So everybody came to see that. My desk tearing up, what is the meaning tearing up? Papers எல்லாம் கிழிச்சு கிழிச்சு கட் பண்ணி ஒட்டிக்கிட்டு இருப்பது. So tearing up newspapers day in and day out, most people thought I was doing next to nothing. Something, whenever we have talent, that's why I already told you, educated with, we can say, qualified or certified with engineering qualification, and of course somewhere they attended that examination TNPSC and they became some assistant like. Or we worked already yesterday. I gave you an example, right? Here, I think in the Nanban movie, he completed engineering, UG engineering. That means Bachelor of Engineering. Then he completed MBA. You know what is the meaning MBA? Expansions. And then he worked in a bank. What was the use of completing engineering? Likewise here, he had qualification and experience and talent, but he was appointed for, tearing papers. So here tearing newspapers day in and day out, most people thought, those who saw him, they thought I was doing next to nothing. So most people, those who saw me here, I is the narrator, I was doing next to nothing. So it is likely that the boss thought likewise too. But anyhow, boss has to think, right? Only boss has given this opportunity. And if he thinks, then I will get a change. So anyone who felt I should be given some occupation would barge into my, cubicle and deliver an extended lecture. You know what is the meaning lecture? Underline the word. Maybe it is like, teaching or educating or explaining a lengthy speech. So here so anyone who felt, whoever comes, whoever saw, whoever sympathized, you understand that they came and of course talked too much, talked too many things with me. And he was telling that. So anyone who felt I should be given some occupation instead of tearing papers and pasting, some profession, something we can take, some part, occupation, underline the word and write some part, genuine, would barge into, underline the word barge. Maybe he was not respected. That's why he barged to walk into a room. Here barge means whenever they are coming. So those who thought that. So anyone who felt I should be given some occupation would barge. Immediately they will come because it is open. But that's why that was known as French windows. So immediately they come. Would barge means come into my room without my permission, without invitation. Anytime, whenever they think, they will come. So you barge into my cubicle and deliver an extended lecture. In this, you can understand that. For an example, when you are not, scoring well, right? Anybody, even your parents, even your father or mother, your sibling, your elders, even your relations, your uncle, auntie, like you can take anybody, all the teachers, even your friends, even your seniors. They will come whenever they saw you, and whenever they see you, they will also come and give you some external lecture. That means some advice. Likewise, he was telling that so anyone who felt I should be given some occupation, some part of a job, would barge into my cubicle. That means come without. It's like trespass into my cubicle and deliver an extended lecture. It means explaining that, advising me, instead of this one, you can also go and do some, and you can also approach, you can also propose, you can also get something, you can change you can resign your job, you can go and get, you have this much talent and you are educated. Like this, always deliver an extended lecture. Now you can understand what I'm trying to convey. The boy in the makeup department had decided one day, I should be enlightened. Enlightened means I should be given some job. So he also thought he was a boy. If we can consider that our first boy, but he was in early 40s, means 41, 42, 43, likewise. But the boy, you can underline the word boy and write office boy, not a boy, youngster, office boy. In the makeup department had decided I should be enlightened. Underline the word enlightened means given, something shown, given, handed over. So enlightened on how great literary talent was being allowed to go waste in a department fit only for barbers and perverts. You know what is the meaning here? Now I can connect with enlightenment. So enlightened in the sense, something we have to educate them. I have to advise, because how great literary talent who possesses? The narrator, the author of the lesson, Ashokamitra possessed, right? So how great literary talent was being allowed to go waste in a department unfit, or fit only for barbers and perverts. You underline the word, what is the meaning barbers? And perverse also, underline the word perverse if you wish. You can also simply write who wasted their talent. Who wasted their talent in a wrong way. Even barbers also we can take. So here, barbers and perverts. This is what the office boy thought. So soon I was praying for crowd shooting all time because nothing short of it would save me. Not whenever he was free, he came to, and of course he come, or we can take that he came to us office. That means in a and a lecture. That means you have this much talent and you have a literary talent, and this one you can become a poet, you can become a and become an actor, and you can become something like this. Always talking. That's why the office boy in the makeup department had decided I should be enlightened on how great literary talent was being allowed to go waste in a department fit only for barbers and perverts. So barbers and perverts means this is not suitable for Ashokamitran. Ashokamitran was talented enough. So I was praying. So likewise, always, whenever he got opportunity, he came into his cubicle and started to discuss, and educate and advise. So that's why the narrator. So I was praying. The narrator was praying. The author was praying for crowd shooting because crowd shooting all time. You can also have close brackets. So I was praying for crowd shooting all the time because whenever crowd shooting is taking place, office boy will be engaged. So he will be escaped. He can escape from his ethics. That's why nothing short of it would save me from his ethics. Underline the word ethics in the sense stories, advice, right? This is what the office boy, narrator, or educator, or narrator or the author, Sokamitran. You understand that? Oh, it's boring, yeah. This is what the narrator thought. And we can also continue. In all instances of frustration, underline the word, what is the meaning of frustration? Something, you can write destruction or anything you can write trust, frustration, or failures, defeat, problems, obstacles, barriers, anything you can. Frustration means totally trust. What is the meaning trust? Trust with, or you can something, depressed. So again, depressed or frustration in all instances, examples, underline that in all instances, examples of frustrations, you will always find the anger directed towards a single person openly or covertly. And this man of the makeup department was convinced that all this woes in ignominy and neglect were due to Kottamangalam Subbu. So here another character we are just introducing, already we discussed, and of course your Kottamangalam Subbu. And Subbu was the number 2 at Gemini Studios. So here, whatever it is, Subbu was a person, and of course he was from Kottamangalam. He was known as Kottamangalam Subbu. He became very familiar, very famous, and of course he intimate with the boss. That's why all other, remaining workers we can take, even including office boy who was rejected always. Ashokamitran was rejected always because of Kottamangalam Subbu's presence. But he was not like a man. He was very jovial. He was like MG Ramachandran. We can also take that MGR. So he was always genuine and he had a wonderful character, and of course. So in all instances of frustration, we're taking that, and you will always find the anger director. The anger director towards a single person. So whatever it is, and he was the person who provides everything. He provided everything. So anger directed towards a single person, openly or covertly. So openly, directly, or covertly in the sense we can secretly, or something behind the screen, and this man of makeup department, and of course here we are talking and scolding. Makeup department, the office boy was totally depressed, rejected, and even though he has talent, he was rejected. And of course, he worked as office boy only. He worked with crowd shootings. He was like an assistant. It is like we can take attender. So you will always find the anger directed towards a single person, openly or covertly. At this man of makeup department was convinced that all this woes, underline the word. Woes means distress, distress, distress. Ignominy, underline the word ignominy means maybe public shame or disgrace, right? Disgrace, di as GRA disgrace, right? GRAC, right? Ignominy, disgrace or public shame, right? Ignominy and neglect. What is the meaning neglect? Rejection, right? We write neglect, rejection. We're convinced that all is, so here we are taking that. So ignominy and neglect were due to Kottamangalam Subbu. He was taking like that. And Subbu was another character. So Office Boy we have completed, Aswagandha we have completed. Now we are moving to Kothamangalam Subbu. So Subbu was the number 2 at Gemini Studio. He was known as number 2. Underline that already told you. He was considered as. So Subbu was the number 2 at Gemini Studios. He couldn't have had a more encouraging opening in films than our grown-up makeup boy had. So while comparing with now comparing Subbu, Kothamangalam Subbu, he was the number 2. He was the number 2 at Gemini Studio. But when we compare with Office Boy, you understand, when we compare with Office Boy had adequate experience because too many years he worked in that Gemini Studio. That's why here, so Kothamangalam Subbu, he couldn't have had, underline the sentence, he couldn't have had a more encouraging opening. You may see that sometimes, for an example, the Pokeri movie and Prabhudeva comes and dances like for a part. Likewise, they will come and go. It's like very genuine characters. Gaurava Thotram Tamil. He couldn't have had a more encouraging opening in films than our grown-up. You underline that grown-up makeup boy, office boy had. When we compare with. Anyhow, he was rejected by the presence of Subbu, Godamangalam Subbu, who was the office boy. Right, so maximum those were there in the Gemini studio, they were something talented. That's why you can take anything, Kannadas, or you can take Ilayaraja and Ilayaraja's fruit, all the members, those who float are magicians. You can also take everybody, even the singers SBB or Malaysia Vasudevan, you can take Janaki ma'am, or you can take Manoj Chitra. Likewise, even the cinema, you could take, even you can go for Rajnikant and of course Vijaykant, Kamala Hassan, Karthi. You take all the heroes, they have their individuality, right? Likewise, everybody was talented enough. That's why they became popular. You take even MSP was the legend, right? Because Ilayaraja was a legend. Ilayaraja is a legend, and MSP was a legend. You take everybody, anything, anybody. So those who are in the movie industries. You can take, even you can go for Vikram, you can go for Surya, how much they are not working, even Kamala Hassan you can take. So likewise, you can take Subbu was number 2 at Gemini Studios. He couldn't have had a more encouraging opening in films than our grown-up makeup boy had. On the contrary, he must have had to face more uncertain, underline the word, difficulties, means problems, barriers, uncertain and difficult times. You understand? He was a number 2. Oh, he was a number 2 in Gemini Studio, and he was something in a pleasing personality, and he was from a high caste, and of course we can take. He had limited education, but he was undergone too many. So he must have had to face. You can take. You can also take. Rajinikanth. Vikram is an example. Best example you can take that. In his, I think, around, I think in his 40s only, early 40s only, he got enlightened. Like, he got opportunities to. He became popular after acting the movies. Before that, too many movies he acted, but he was not. He didn't become famous. Likewise, even you take Rajinikanth, he was a conductor, like once bus conductor or lorry, like he was once, and then he in his, I think, early 30s or 40s, he got some opportunities. That's why he became superstar. Likewise, here they were mentioning that. So you can see on the contrary, so he could not have had more encouraging opening in films than our grown-up makeup office boy had. On the contrary, in opposite, you can take, he must have had to face more uncertain. Uncertain means difficulties, and of course, difficult times were when he began his career as a movie, as a film industry person. That's why for when he began his career as a poet, you can take. He was in the story department, like we can also take. He was at the Gemini studio. I mean, he entered in industry, film industry. So when he began his career as an employee, so there were no finally established film producing companies or studios when he joined. So then only he joined Gemini Studios. Like, there were no family that means very adequate and standard established, means companies. We can take as an example Gemini Studio, film producing companies. As for now we have too many. You can also go for some studios like Jnanavel Raja producers, like Sankas Protection. Likewise, even everybody, even Sivakarthik and SK also started to produce. Prakash Raj duet movies, like Prakash Raj also has, Kamala Hassan has. Likewise, everybody has their own companies. Even Rajinikanth's daughter, Soundarya, he also has a producing company. Even Vishal as a company. Likewise, so fine. So there were no finally established film producing companies or studios. Even in the matter of education, when we take especially, or we can take especially formal education, you can go for UG or PG and then, philosophy and PhD. Like, even in the matter of education, especially formal education, Subbu wouldn't have, Ketamangalam Subbu wouldn't have had an appreciable lead over our boy. When we compare with office boy was much more than, qualified and familiar, right? He qualified, even in the matter of education also, when we compare with office boy. So here, Subbu wouldn't have had an appreciable lead over our office boy. But anyhow, Subbu became famous and office boy became somewhat, neglected, rejected because of Subbu's nature, Subbu's attitude. We can take Subbu wouldn't have had an appreciable lead over our boy, but underline the word. What is the meaning virtue? Virtue here we can see for the virtue I'm standing here. What is the meaning virtue? Virtue, underline the word and write behavior showing high moral standards. Behavior, showing high moral standards. You understand that? Something while looking at them, we will identify. Oh, they are something, pleasing while looking at. They might have educated. He might have educated. Looking at that, while looking at that, it's like for an example, Gadi and of course Dhotis, while looking at their dress code and their behavior, the speech, the delivery, their moving, will identify, right? Somewhat culture. When we compare with, office boys, Subbu was much more than that. That's why, because he was from, but by virtue of being born a Brahmin, a virtue, indeed, you understand that he was from that particular community. That's why he was looking so, genuine. This is what the narrator is, because narrator is experience. This is not, I am just, narrating, I am saying, I'm not explaining. This is what the narrator Ashoka Mitran very clearly, he was personally experienced, so that was sharing with us. So, but by virtue in the sense we can take behavior, showing high moral standard. By virtue, we can take an opportunity of being born a Brahmin, a virtue, or indeed, we are taking that he must have had exposure to more affluent situations. Unlike the word affluent and right, wealthy are suitable. We can selvam, yeah. He must have had exposure. What is the meaning exposure? Exposure means influence. Underline the word approach and influence of others, influence among others. மற்றவங்களை எப்படி தன்வயப்படுத்துறதுன்னு சொல்லுவோம். It is like attention seeking and of course admiring others because of us, because of us, exposure. Now, what is the meaning? Maybe moving and of course speech or the delivery or sharing the things or solving the problems, giving ideas, giving solutions to a problem. Like, can take anything because he was from the particular community when we compare with others. So, but by virtue of being born a Brahmin, a virtue, indeed, he must have had exposure to more affluent means wealthy, selvamika, affluent situations. And people, of course, he had as people. What is the meaning? He had as people means as audiences. Always. ஒவ்வொருத்தருக்கும் அவங்களோட audience இருக்கும் இல்லையா? எப்பயுமே ஒரு 4 பேர் இருந்துட்டே இருப்பாங்க. While looking at that, so sure. Now he passed away, right? So many years ago. But anyhow, some of them will say that when you go and ask in villages, some remote villages, you go and ask that. Yes, of course, there is MGR. We will vote for MGR. And of course, we are saying 2 leaves, right? ரெட்டை இலைக்கு தான் நாங்கள் ஓட்டு போடுவோம். எம்ஜிஆர் வந்து ஹாஸ்பிட்டல்ல இருந்து சரியாகி வந்துட்டாருன்னு சொல்லிட்டு நிறைய பேர் இன்னுமே இருக்காங்க. We have come across. Personally, in person, I also experienced. I asked a person who was a show mentor. What is the meaning of show mentor? I asked, to whom will you vote? I will vote for MGR. He is okay now. He is in America and he's getting treatment. Will come soon, then we will also vote for him. This is what he mentioned. So likewise, we can see here, audiences, ரசிகர்கள்னு சொல்லுவாங்கல்ல, உயிரில் மேலான ரசிகர்கள்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. He must have had exposure to more affluent situations and people, and he had the ability to look cheerful at all times, even after having had a hand in a flop film. Something, this is what the talent, we can explain that, after getting even failures also, one who, that's why I already told you, you can win. When you stay positive in an IT situation, you will win. After getting defeat also, we should not leave our, that means Zentu. That's why he had the ability to look cheerful at all times. We are always some personalities, always you see students will be something, depressed always with their education, their test, and of course, here like Nowadays, you can also see the most stressful jobs. We can take that one is teaching professor. You see the teachers always they will be something trust like. But someone you can also find always be happy. Even anything, even the world that's all ends. Also, they will be very happy. I mean that's a character. So he had the ability to look cheerful. How is that possible always? That's why I already told you. I think Abdullah stories. A disabled went to his master whose name was Abdullah and asked, Master, I saw you. You are always happy, cheerful. Tell me, how are you so happy and cheerful? Abdullah started laughing. The disabled asked, Master, I asked a very simple question. Why are you laughing so much? Then Abdullah explained, when I was at your age, I went to my master and asked the same question. He laughed at me. So I'm laughing. Okay, anyhow, what was the answer? That means every day when we are getting up in the morning, we have two choices. Bliss or misery. You know what is the meaning? Bliss, happiness, and misery, miserable, always worrying. So what is your choice? Bliss or misery? Everybody will choose, bliss, happiness, instead of, miserable. That's why you have to always say that, who am I? Am I a, blissful, happy student or a miserable student? So when you are choosing a choice, bliss, happiness, you should remain happy for the next 24 hours. What happens doesn't matter. Every day, it is not something difficult to keep myself happy or just blissful for the 24 hours. Then what shall I do? What was the next day? Again, when you are getting up in the next day, every day when you are getting up, then every week, every month, every year, every day you have to ask this question, what is your choice? Abdullah, what is your choice? Bliss or misery? Bliss. Abdullah, what is your choice? Success or failure? Success. Abdullah, what is your choice? Smile or hatred? Smile. Take everything. So commit yourself. When you chose a choice, you have to live for that. You please, what happens for the next 24 hours doesn't matter for you because I chose bliss. Today I will be a happy student. Today I will be a happy teacher. Today I will be a happy parent. Today I will be a happy an employee. This is a secret every day. So this is what he shared. So that's why this is something, it is something nowadays unbelievable. We cannot follow because every time you go and see, you can see a teacher, you can see a principal, you can see a student, you can see parents, you can see employee, you can see workers, you can see anybody you go and see that they will be angry always. They will be shouted at somebody. They will be always muddled or something. They will be always muddled because of the situation. Because of the situation, nobody is peaceful. Nobody is happy. That's why here he was very famous. He had the ability to look cheerful at all times, even after had a hand in floor film. That is very important. See how much ever they spend, even their days, 6 months or 1 year they spend for the movie, and they spend lakhs and lakhs, even crores also. But that movie becomes flop. You know what is the meaning? Flop means failure. That's all. So even after having had a hand in a flop film, failure ஆனதுக்கு அப்புறம் கூட he was very happy. He always had work for somebody. You understand that? That means he was something genuine. He was social activist like use and throw like everybody misused. They are used. எனக்கு இதை செஞ்சு கொடுங்க. He did for everything. He doesn't have he didn't have some standard things like he mixed with everybody's work and supported. He could never do things on his own. Up to that we can stop. So Kottamangalam Subbu. Now we have come across Asokamitran and of course Office Boy. Now we are having that experience of our Kottamangalam Subbu next to the boss at Gemini Studio. He was considered as the second boss in the Gemini Studio.